Hey guys, Nightfall here, taking a look at the paths you can use for Cathedral. Now, for Cathedral, the first thing you're going to want to do before you even start the key is go talk to your group and decide, are you killing the first mini-boss? And yes, some of you may be confused, but you can skip the first mini-boss. Now, there's a couple reasons that you would want to do this. You don't necessarily always want to do it, but there's a couple reasons you would. On a high fortified key, he has a ton of health, but he only gives as much percentage as about 2 or 3 other mobs. So whether you fight him alone, or even you fight him with a bunch of other adds, he's going to slow your group down more than killing 2 or 3 adds somewhere else is going to slow you down. Like, even with Lust, he's going to slow you down because you're going to be in combat with him for more than a minute. You're not going to be able to use the second pot within that minute, so your entire group loses potions, you're going to be dragging him through a bunch of groups, and he's just going to last and soak up so much more damage than killing, 2, 3, 4 mobs somewhere else in the dungeon would, so it's definitely gonna slow you down. But if you're using Lust at the start, it only slows you down a couple seconds there, so if your plan is high fortified, let's Lust as soon as we get out the door, it's probably just worth pulling the mini-boss. Now, I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to show you how you skip the mini-boss. So how you skip the mini-boss is you go up and you trigger him. He triggers when you pass that little barrel sitting up there in the corner there. And once you trigger him with one player, and that player runs back. Everyone else is waiting by the door, and like you saw there, he just runs right by. Now something important to remember there, he does a loop. So what you're going to have is he's going to eventually come back around, and he's going to go ahead and smack you in the back of the head if you're not paying attention, because he just does laps. So I'm going to show you this in a different clip because I didn't want you to see what was going to happen next with that last clip, because with that last clip, it would show you a strategy that is very difficult to pull off, and I don't want too many people attempting that unless they've got a group that they've run hundreds and hundreds of keys with, because you're probably just going to fail and end up blaming me. So what you see here is your first safe spot. If you skip the mini-boss, this is your first safe spot. Obviously not where I'm standing, but you see that alcove off to the right with the windows. You just dip in there, he'll run right by you, and then you keep going. You only have time to pull 2 or 3 packs in between each lap that the mini-boss makes around the whole circuit. This whole circuit is the area above, I guess that's Tomb of Sargeras down there, and he'll just run around this outside ledge, jump over the gap that you can't get by, and then come back around behind you. Now, if you did kill the mini-boss, you don't have to hide. You've also got the side rooms to hide in if you do need to, but, it's better just hide in that alcove up there. Now I'm just going to quickly take this time to go over some special things about these mobs. You see those green circles that sometimes drop down, like that one right there. If you stand in it, you're going to take a lot of damage. It does scale with level now. After the last MDI, they saw that warlocks were abusing it by enslaving that pet, so they made it scale with the level. So it's going to hurt you pretty bad if you stand in it. I'm a warlock, I got all this self-healing, you can still see it ticking on my health, but you do get 50% haste for standing in it. The Fell Strike, see, Fell Strike dodge attack thing on my screen. Fell Strike, it has a 40-yard range, but the line he throws out only goes 30 yards. So if you stand, if you're, obviously melee can't do this, but if you're a ranged or healer and you stand 31 yards or more away from it, he'll still throw that sort of flame whip or whatever you want to call it at you. It won't reach you. So you can just stand still, keep DPS and keep healing, keep ignoring it entirely. Oh, and this is also something you probably shouldn't see. Yeah, see, I failed that. There is a way to skip around these by going around the outside pillars. I did it the wrong way there. I wouldn't recommend trying that unless you're just screwing around with your group. You don't really care too much about the key, or you've run hundreds and hundreds of keys with that group. Now, something you want to remember with Cathedral is that whether it's teaming or it's normal, no teaming, you don't ever want to pull all the mobs if you can help it. If you can do any skips, you definitely want to do skips, because in Cathedral, what's going to happen is you're always going to be over %. Just the way that Cathedral's laid out, you pull the minimum number of mobs without doing any skips, you're going to be over %, even on teaming. So what you'll want to do is at least do what I call the minimum skip. The minimum skip requires either invisibility potions or a rogue with cloak. You'll probably, if you're not using Invispot, you're probably going to want to use a Sky Step. But either way, you're going to want to go past those 2 packs there. You're going to want to keep the patrol rooted there so you can skip by it. And you're going to want to go up the stairs. If you can't do that, just do a suicide. and have your healer die on a pylon, or have your healer possibly invis past it and res everyone up top. By skipping those mobs, you will be just slightly under percent at the end, so you just want to go ahead, and if you skip the mini-boss, you want to do one of these, and if you skipped those last 3 packs there, you want to do one of these. You pull that walker right there, and you pull on the left, you saw the Temptress with the 2 lashers, and there's also pretty much mirrored pack on the other side. So if you did both of those skips, like you skipped the last 3 packs there, and you skip the mini-boss, you may want to go ahead and pull it on both sides, or else you're going to find yourself at the end just a little bit under percent and having to run all the way back to get more percent. But those packs are much faster than doing the other packs. Now, up here, the only thing to note is that if you stun or knock one of the strangle vines while it's already strangling someone, it'll just stop the channel entirely. If you do it beforehand, it'll just recast. There's nothing really to be said for the first boss, but if you did your skips, you may have to pull at least around 4 mobs up here. If not, go ahead and go through, make sure that both patrols are far away. Be very careful when coming around here and make sure they're at least that far away before you try to go up the stairs. Now, when you come up the stairs, you're going to want to go ahead and pull everything at the top of the stairs. What you really want to do to get them to group up real well, use something like a Blood Elf Silence or a Demon Hunter Silence on one side of the room, have the tank get aggro on everything, and pull them all to the other side of the room that he didn't silence. And now, coming up here, there's nothing really to be said for the next room apart from Gazerax. The only thing I can say about these mobs besides don't miss your interrupts is when you see those arcane tomes come down, that's what most people are scared of with these scavengers. They are sort of like the grubs in Neltharion's lair. You can stun them, or you can actually fear them. You can't fear the grubs in Neltharion's lair, but you can fear the books, the arcane tomes, fear or stun, drop that on them, and they will stop casting. They will not try to recast, and you will get absolutely no summons, and you can completely ignore the arcane books as soon as you stun them. Obviously, you'll eventually have to kill them, but overall, you can just get back to DPSing the dangerous mobs once you drop a stun or a fear onto the arcane tomes. For Gazerax, there's only one thing to say, really. A lot of groups are starting to figure this out, if they didn't already know it, is that his most dangerous ability, Focus Destruction, has a maximum range of 50 yards. Now, the thing is, you don't necessarily want to outrange it. The only time you want to outrange it is if your entire group is outranging it. Because how it works is Focus Destruction fires a set number of missiles randomly at your group. So if all 5 are in range, each person takes 1/5 of the hits. But if 1 or 2 people decide, hey, you know what, I'm going to go 51 yards away so I don't take any damage, well, the problem is you still have the rest of your group in range of it. So now they're taking twice as many hits. So they're going to die horribly, especially on Fortified or Raging. Now, if you just leave your tank there, and everyone gets out of range of it but the tank, your tank pops a defensive, some sort of mitigation, maybe a self-heal, and he'll be fine, unless it's like a 26, 27 Raging. He's going to be absolutely fine to take all the hits himself. So if you're finding your group is getting absolutely wrecked, or at least one player in your group, maybe 2, is getting absolutely wrecked by Focus Destruction, have everyone but the tank get 51 yards away from the boss, or rather mini-boss, when he starts to do Focus Destruction, and only the tank will take damage. You know, leave something on the tank as a healer. For the second boss, the only thing that isn't just basic knowledge that anyone should know after doing this, even on a Mythic 0, is that the back left bookshelf, the closest one to the door you came in on the left, is the only one that spawns the Mind Control book. So what you want to do is probably just toss a mark down there. I like to toss the red X down by that bookshelf, signifying don't break that bookshelf unless you have absolutely no choice. You got 3 other bookshelves to choose from: Immunities Work, Bop, Divine Shield, Turtle, Ice Block. You can use all of that to go ahead and just immune it, or just use any of the other bookshelves, anything but the back left one. Only use that one if you have absolutely no choice, just because the mind control, you know, someone gets mind controlled and the mind control breaks right as he's about to slam the ground in their middle of the slam, they're dead. So the mind control can actually kill players if you're unlucky. So that's why you want to avoid the mind control bookshelf. But if you have to break it, you have to break it. So with the second boss dead, you're coming up on this trash pack. Obviously, most of the imps just run away. It's just RP kind of stuff. The only thing to note here is that if you are on explosive, get behind the wall, sort of like we did there. It's not explosive in this one, but we still got behind the wall, just because on explosive, 50-50 shot, like 17 explosives are going to spawn right there, so just hide behind the wall until they go off. Other than that, you know, just kill the mobs. They're just regular mobs. Get your percent. Again, if you did the skips, pull these 4 little spiders on the side. We didn't do the skips in this particular recording, so that's why we're not pulling them right now. You'll notice we have way more percent than you'll have coming up to this point, because we use a different strategy that I'm going to touch at the end of this video after everything. But for this pack up here, there's only one thing I can offer you, is that if you tank it at the top of the stairs, I'm not sure why he's coming down. This video was like 4 months ago, so I can't figure out why. He's sort of realizing he shouldn't be coming down. So what you want to do as a tank is you want to have all the mobs up there at the top. Because you see that horrible green orb of death? It has what I like to refer to as no Z-axis, or only about 5 yards of Z-axis. So if it's at the top of that ramp there, and the rest of your group, at least the ranged, obviously melee can't do this, but ranged and healers, stay down here where we're standing, that green orb, if he launches it at us, is going to go right over our heads and deal no damage. So we won't have to dodge to the side, we won't accidentally pull spiderlings if we didn't need them before, and, you know, we won't walk into serrated cleaves trying to dodge orbs. We can just stand still, go full into DPS, so long as he is at least, you know, 8 yards higher up in the air than the rest of the group. And the only thing I have to say for the mini-boss coming up is make sure everyone is standing right next to her, so when she teleports right next to you, so you only have to move 3 yards, 5 yards to dodge her attack, because on, like, even a 20 fortified, you can get one shot, absolutely one shot by her Venom Storm. So if you're all stood, you know, right behind her, when she teleports like that, boom, everyone's out of the way in like 2 seconds. Also, if it's Sanguine, make sure you're not standing next to a Sanguine though, or else you'll just teleport into Sanguine, stand in it for 5 seconds, and heal up like 40% and ruin the entire key. Coming up on the third boss, you want to have at least 94.8% completion for your ads, because the 4 bats that spawn in between the bosses give, I believe, 1.3% per bat, and there's 4 bats, so that's like 5.2%. It's roughly that. If you go up with 95%, you're always going to be great. And the paths I was laying out before should have you coming up here with 95%. So for this boss, what I personally like to do is I like to have the tank and your burstiest DPS on a mob that the boss is being tanked on one of the portal ads that he's being tanked on. We sort of held DPS a little bit here. We made it go a little slow because we wanted as much time after his ability to DPS these ads down, because when you're in the shield, you deal like 90% less, 99% I think actually, less damage. And also watch out, if you're a tank, please taunt the imps. Those imps will melee you, and they will kill your claw. That imp just one-shot me as a clawthy there. But anyways, the other two, the less bursty guys, will be on the other ad. And what's going to happen there is it's going to go ahead and die slower, probably, even with the 2 DPS versus 1 DPS and 1 tank on it. And if you're DPSing an ad, it dies, and there's another one still up, I don't care if you're melee, go help out. It's so much more important to kill the ad than it is to get DPS on the boss, because what you're going to do up here probably, especially on higher keys, is you're going to want to get him to about 55% and then stop damage. And then once he's starting to get to around 90 energy or so, he uses his ability at 100 energy, start DPSing a little bit more. You want him to reach 100 energy right as you hit around 51% health. That way, as he's using his cast, he will hit 50% health, giving you the absolute most time possible for killing these upcoming ads. And that is going to be crucial, because you're not going to have your opening abilities. You're probably not going to have cooldowns unless you have really short cooldowns like a sub rogue or a fire mage. So if you got like 2-3 minute cooldowns, they're not going to be up by now. So you're going to have a lot of trouble, and you're definitely going to want a second pot on this second set of ads, and obviously DPS both of them down until they're both dead. There's only 2 things to say for the final boss. First off, the bats fly from window to window across diagonally, so if you stand in between the windows, sort of where we're standing, bats can actually not hit you, so you never have to watch your feet if you're over by this, you know, wall with the green beam going through it. If you're there, bats can never hit you, and you can just stand perfectly still, keep doing your DPS. And another thing about the down face, that's the only other thing, is make sure you're focusing one set side of the room first, because if you do that, what'll happen is your tank will only have to focus on blocking the other side of the room, which is covered by them pretty much almost just standing still, facing one direction. They will have to do so little work if you're all coordinated and just hitting, the right side of the room, which is what we like to do. But you could do left side, back side, front side. As long as you're focusing one side of the room, your tank will barely have to move at all to block everything. So I put this off till after everything, because first off, you need to be ready for this to not work at all. And you need to be ready for it to ruin your key if you try it and fail, because they've been trying to nerf this strategy several different ways for the last few months, and it's at the point where it's almost impossible, but I believe it is still possible. Extreme warning on this. It's very likely that the first 20 times you try this, you'll fail. So this part is called the full skip. You skip everything but the first 2 packs, including the mini-boss, and you have your healer make sure they run all the way up the stairs and die on a pylon, and everyone else just needs to die within range of the mass res. Because you are skipping everything down here, because this is the slowest part of the instance compared to everything else, and you're thinking, where are you going to get percent after this? You're skipping so much percent. I know there's a lot of percent in Cathedral, but not this much. So what's actually going to happen, you're not going to be pulling things like to the side of the first boss or anything like that, which is where you'd see the extra percent. Instead, you're going to be pulling it later, because if you pull to the sides, it's just all botanists. Like, you'll be fighting 3-4 botanists at a time, which is horrible unless you can keep them all locked down completely. So instead, you're going to be finding a cheesy way to get the extra percent. You need a monk for this. I gotta stress that. If you don't have a monk, you just can't do this. And it's been nerfed, so it's harder for the monk. So up here, you're going to do something a little cheesy with the monk and with all your AoE stuns, knockbacks, disorients. You're going to start by dropping Ring of Peace right there. Now, Ring of Peace won't work this well anymore because they put a maximum cap of how many knockbacks it can do. So it'll last like half as long as this. So you're going to need long stuns, you're going to need knockbacks, you're going to need slows, and you're going to want to kill everything, all the imps that you weren't supposed to be killing, that were supposed to be part of RP. If you successfully complete this, you will gain 30 to 40% of dungeon completion pretty much instantly. It'll more than make up for doing the full skip, but if you fail that, you will have to go back and pull so much percent that it'll probably deplete your key. So if you fail it, you deplete your key, basically. So it's either it works or you fail. So that's why I'm recommending against it, and I recommend rather to do the short skip and just pull an extra pack here, a few extra imps at the top of the stairs, and the 4 little spiderlings, rather than attempting the full skip into the imp cheese. Even if you got a monk with Ring of Peace, even if you got Dragon's Breath, Warlock Stun, if you have 2 monks so you also have Leg Sweep, or something like that, it's just very dangerous to pull off now because they've nerfed it multiple ways. Okay, actually, I think if the imps are around for at least like 15 to 20 seconds, they become immune to the knockbacks, the slows and all that. So you will have to lust it just to make sure the imps die before they become immune to everything you're doing. So they've tried to nerf it several times because they don't want people getting 30% in one pull. Feel free to attempt it. I believe it's still possible, but extremely difficult. But remember, if you fail, you probably deplete your key. So just be very careful with it. But that's all for Cathedral. I'm going to be doing a Warlock video for it as well. But that's all for now. Take care, guys.